Part 3: The Knowledge Boom.
All right, we're going to talk about AI, but probably not the AI you're thinking of. We're going to dive into its secret history. Let's rewind the clock and explore the 3 wild decades of booms, busts, and unbelievable breakthroughs that had to happen to make today's AI revolution possible. You know, AI really does feel like it just exploded onto the scene, right? Like some kind of overnight success story. But here's the thing. What if I told you it had to fail? And I mean fail spectacularly. Not once, but twice, just to get where it is today. Yeah, that's the story we're going to unpack. Okay, so picture this. It's the early 1980s. The entire field of AI is basically just thawing out from its first long, cold AI winter. All those grand sci-fi dreams of creating these incredible thinking machines, yeah, they'd pretty much failed. Researchers were left scrambling, desperately looking for a new way forward, something more practical. And that desperation led to this really crucial pivot. The old dream, building a general intelligence, a machine that thinks just like a person, it was super inspiring for sure, but totally impossible with the tech they had. So a new, much more down-to-earth idea took hold. They thought, okay, forget building an artificial human. What if we just build a machine that can be as good as a human expert in one single thing? And that one simple idea, it gave rise to a whole new technology that would completely define the 1980s. This was the start of the expert systems boom. And it was a huge deal, because for the first time, AI was having a taste of real commercial success. It was finally proving it could actually deliver value to a business. So what exactly is an expert system? Well, the best way to think about it is like a digital rulebook, but on steroids. Imagine taking a top-tier human expert, like a doctor or an engineer, and basically downloading their brain. You capture all their knowledge as this massive set of if-then rules. If you see this symptom, then consider this diagnosis. It was all about solving problems in one super specific area. The poster child, the absolute star of this whole era, was a system called XCON. Now, its job was, it was anything but glamorous. Its entire purpose was to configure these super complex computer systems for a big company called Digital Equipment Corporation, or DEC. We're talking tedious, nitpicky, detailed work, but, and this is the key, it was absolutely vital for their business. And you know what? It worked. It worked brilliantly. XCON saved DEC an estimated $40 million a year. A year, just by preventing mistakes. I mean, think about that. For the very first time, a company could point to an AI system on their balance sheet and show this massive, undeniable return on investment. The entire business world suddenly sat up and paid attention. And just to give you a taste, here is an actual rule from the XCON system. I mean, just look at that. It's so specific, so detailed. And while this kind of power was really impressive, you can probably already see the problem brewing, can't you? Just imagine trying to write and then manage thousands and thousands of these super intricate rules, all by hand. It was a ticking time bomb, a clear sign of the trouble that was coming. So you have XCON's success making waves, and then Japan drops a bombshell. They announced this incredibly ambitious $850 million fifth-generation project. And this just sparks a global panic. Suddenly, AI wasn't some niche academic thing anymore. No, it was a matter of national security, of economic survival. It was a full-on arms race. And money, just tons of it, flooded into the field, fueling this huge, massive boom. But here's the catch. That whole boom, it was built on a really fragile foundation. The very thing that made these expert systems so powerful, all those meticulously handcrafted rules, was also their greatest weakness. It was their Achilles heel. And the bubble, it was about to pop. So problem number 1, these systems were brittle. I mean, inside their little box of rules, they were geniuses. But the second you threw a problem at them that they hadn't been explicitly programmed for, they didn't just stumble, they didn't just get it wrong, they failed, catastrophically. Then there's the cost. They were just ridiculously expensive. The process, we're talking about interviewing human experts for months, sometimes even years, just to pull out all their knowledge, and then paying engineers to painstakingly code all of that into rules. It was just so slow, so tedious, and wildly expensive. And the final nail in the coffin? They became UN maintainable. Seriously, just try to imagine a system with 10,000 rules. Now, what happens when you need to add a new one? Well, that new rule might accidentally conflict with 1,000 others you've already written. The costs to just update and manage these things ballooned out of control. It became an absolute programmer's nightmare. And so, pop, the bubble burst. And when it happened fast. The market for AI completely collapsed in 1987. By the mid-90s, hundreds of these promising AI companies had just folded. The second AI winter had arrived, and believe me, it was even colder than the first. But here's where the story gets interesting. Even as all the money dried up and the hype vanished, a quiet revolution was starting in the background. While pretty much the whole world was giving up on AI, a small group of dedicated researchers kept going. They were pursuing a completely different idea, and in doing so, they were planting the seeds for the AI that we all know today. And this new philosophy? It was a total 180, a complete reversal. Expert systems were top-down, right? You had humans spoon-feeding rules to the machine. But this new idea, machine learning, was bottom-up. You don't give it rules at all. Instead, you just give it a ton of data, a massive amount, and you let the machine figure out the patterns for itself. And that one change made all the difference. It made the AI adaptive instead of brittle. The first time the public really got a glimpse of the power of this new era was in 1997. It was a huge moment. A machine, for the first time in history, defeated the reigning world chess champion, the legendary Garry Kasparov. But let's be clear about what this was and what it wasn't. This was not a thinking machine in the human sense. Not even close. Deep Blue's victory was all about brute force. It was a hyper-specialized supercomputer that could crunch 200 million chess positions every single second. It was a triumph of raw computation, not human-like cognition. I mean, this thing was so specialized, it couldn't even play a game of checkers. So Deep Blue proved what massive computing power could do. But this new machine learning approach, it needed one more crucial ingredient. And then the internet happened. The rise of the web in the 90s and 2000s created this ingredient in unbelievable quantities. That ingredient was data. Massive, massive amounts of data. It was the fuel that this new kind of AI had been desperately waiting for. Okay, so let's recap. We've gone through 30 years of these exhilarating highs and absolutely crushing lows. After all that, what did the field of AI actually learn? What were the big lessons that finally set the stage for the future we're living in now? Well, 4 really crucial lessons emerged from the ashes of that second winter. Lesson 1, and this is a big one, data beats rules. It turns out that learning from examples is just way more powerful and scalable than trying to handcraft knowledge. Lesson 2, hype hurts. We saw it twice, right? Overpromising leads to this massive backlash that kills funding and sets the entire field back for years. Lesson 3, infrastructure matters. You could have the most brilliant algorithm in the world, but it's useless without massive computing power and tons of data to run on. And finally, maybe the most important lesson, persistence through the winters. The real breakthroughs, they didn't happen during the flashy boom times. They came from those dedicated researchers who just kept their heads down and kept working when almost nobody else believed in them. So think about it. By 2011, AI was like a battle-hardened veteran. It had survived 2 booms and 2 busts. It had traded in its youthful arrogance for some hard-won humility. It wasn't about the sci-fi dream of building a human brain in a box anymore. It was about using data and computation to solve real-world problems. The long, often painful preparation was finally, almost, over. And that brings us right to the edge of the modern era, with one big question hanging in the air. After all those decades of struggle, of learning all the ways things didn't work, of slowly, piece by piece, assembling the right tools, the right data, and the right ideas, was AI finally ready for its revolution?